Just waiting for the system to pick up and to connect. Everything seems to appear going well so far. There we are. Just waiting for the system to pick up. Sounds good. Okay. It's such a good morning here where I am, and I'm sure there where you are, it is also a good morning or a good afternoon or maybe a good evening or a good night. But in any case, it's good. It's always good because that is the dominant momentum of all that is. And today in this live, I'm going to talk about why human beings aren't demonstrating the kind of supernatural abilities that are available all over all that is. I'm going to be talking about the safeguards, the fail-safes that are safeguarding these supernatural abilities and why they are in place. And throughout this live, you're going to hear what keeps everyone from achieving supernatural abilities. Now, that everyone is a absolute, and we can't always say that, can we? Because there are always exceptions. There are people right now, including myself, who are experiencing some level of supernatural capability. We're also going to talk about how to comply with the safeguards so that if you desire, you can realize and then express, and as a result of expressing, be a demonstration to others, the ability to make use of supernatural abilities. And then finally, we're going to be talking about how being disconnected from source leads us to motivations that wouldn't otherwise be motivations. And this is one of the reasons how being disconnected from source leads us to motivations that wouldn't otherwise be motivations. This is one of the reasons why supernatural abilities are not that common in our time-space reality. Again, we're talking about all that is, and across the infinite numbers of time-space realities that exist in all that is, supernatural abilities are commonplace. They're all day, every day. Everything's happening all at once. But in this time-space reality, they're not as prevalent. So let's talk about this. I want to start by telling a story. This is a true story as far as I know, detailed in a book called Astral Projection by Oliver Fox. He lived in the 1930s, and he compiled a record of his travels outside of his body. And what's interesting is he was having these really, I'm struggling because my broader perspective, I'm wanting to use fantastical, he was having these really fantastical experiences, but my broader perspective is telling me that they're not fantastical, they're ordinary. But you won't get the point if I say ordinary. So he was having these fantastical experiences of traveling outside of his body and visiting alternate dimensions. Probable nows is what he was experiencing in alternate dimensions. And in one specific instance he was describing, he traveled outside of his body and came into awareness. I believe he was in a burlesque venue, like a bar, where there was a burlesque show, and there was a woman on the stage, scantily clad, that was performing. And Oliver, in his out-of-body state, walked up onto the stage and touched the woman who was doing the performance. And when he touched her, she quaked. She felt his touch and got extremely frightened and had to run off stage. This is Oliver's accounting of what happened. And then when he touched her and she did that, he then came back into his body in an instant. Thereafter, he was unable to travel outside of his body. And he describes how whenever he tried, he would see in his mind's eye a do not enter sign or a no sign, one of those circles with the X in it. And he was describing this as his cadre, he didn't call it that, but his spiritual followers or spiritual guides that were blocking his ability to travel outside of his body because he was violating the principles of all that is. This is a great story because it illustrates the safeguards that are in place. So let's talk about the safeguards, but first let's talk about why they're in place. So if you visited positivelyfocused.co, my website, you know that I describe human beings as God in human form. Seth, one of my mentors, describes human beings this way too. We are all incipient gods. We are in this time-space reality, this physical reality, in order to learn the capabilities, to learn how to handle, to responsibly manage the capabilities that are inherent in us. That's what we're here doing. We're learning that we create our reality. We're learning how we create our reality. And we're learning how to responsibly manage that capability. We're learning to do that in time-space reality, in this physical reality, which is a kind of like a classroom or a training ground. We're doing it here because for a couple of reasons. Number one, because all that is extremely, extremely dense with activity. I cannot find words that are precise enough to describe how dense with activity, vibrational momentum, vibrational movement, non-physical, or all that is. So it's extremely, extremely complex. And if we were to be in non-physical with our current level of awareness, it would be overwhelming to us. We would not be able to control ourselves or control the reality that we are creating for ourselves. The second reason is because there's no delay in non-physical. So in physical reality, there's always a delay between your desire, there's a buffer between expression of your desire and the fulfillment of that desire. But in non-physical, that doesn't exist. Anything that you conjure into your awareness instantly is manifested. And so you could imagine if you're sloppy with your focus, then you'd be creating realities willy-nilly, sort of out of control. And then you'd be at the beck and call of that out of control creation. And it would just scare the bejesus out of you or get you so wrapped up in confusion, you'd literally temporarily lose your sense of identity. So the first reason why we're here in physical reality learning how to responsibly manage our godlike capabilities is because non-physical, the place that we come from and the place that we return when we're done with this training ground, non-physical is extremely dense with vibrational activity. The second reason is because thoughts are immediately created in non-physical, whereas here in physical, in this training ground, thoughts, there's a buffer between the thought we expressed and the fulfillment of that thought. The third reason that we're here in physical reality learning is because of the delay. The delay allows us to perceive what we express as a thought or a belief and what shows up. It allows us to better see the correlation or the causation between our thoughts and our beliefs. Now, the reason why that we exist across multiple lifetimes is because we are sometimes stubborn, narrow-minded, and idiots, in the sense that we aren't able to see in a single lifetime the correlation or the causation between our thoughts and what shows up in our physical reality. So in physical reality, we're learning how to responsibly manage the inherent powers that we have so that we can more consciously and deliberately express those abilities when we return to non-physical. And that's one of the reasons why we're here. And it's also one of the reasons why there are safeguards in all that is. Because for people, for humans, for the incipient gods that are here learning how to be gods, if we were in non-physical, we'd be creating realities willy-nilly, as I said before. We'd be causing a lot of disruption, kind of like what Oliver Fox did in his out-of-body sojourn. And so we're here in a safe place, so to speak, in order for us to learn how to responsibly leverage and enjoy and express our incipient powers. So what keeps nearly everyone from achieving these supernatural abilities? Well, let's talk about what these supernatural abilities are. First of all, we're talking about things like Oliver Fox was exploring: out-of-body travel, astral projection, extrasensory perception, being able to perceive the thoughts of others, being able to project our consciousness to other locations, and then even more seemingly outlandish abilities such as teleportation and shape-shifting. There are probably some others, but these are the ones I've been focusing on. The safeguards that are in place aren't really safeguards. Safeguards imply that there is someone outside of you putting limitations on you, but that's not what's happening. You are the one who is putting in place the safeguards, and these supernatural abilities cannot be realized by you until and unless you find yourself chronically aligned with the pure positive energy that you are in non-physical, the pure positive energy that is your broader perspective, and the pure positive energy that is all that is. So the safeguards aren't really safeguards like laws. They're basically the fundamental principles underlying how all that is works. And if you are violating those principles, and one of the ways we violate those principles is by not realizing that we are creating our reality with our thoughts and beliefs. If you violate those principles, then you're not able to achieve these higher order supernatural abilities. The other safeguard that's in place is the nature of your beliefs themselves. A main reason why many people, almost everybody, doesn't realize these supernatural abilities is simply because they don't believe they're possible. And even those who believe they're possible don't believe they're possible for them, or they have thoughts and beliefs that run contrary to the belief they're possible. For example, I once had this belief, they may fear that if they travel outside of their body, they won't be able to get back in. Or if they leave their body, they will experience annihilation. This is connected to their basic belief that there's nothing after death. And so another safeguard is the lack of belief in the ability. If you don't believe you have the ability, you're not going to be able to express the ability. But here's the thing. Every single one of us, because we're gods in human form, every single one of us inherently possess the ability to experience any experience we want. But we have to line up with the pure positive energy that we are, soothe the momentum of the beliefs that are contrary to expressing these capabilities, come into alignment with the capabilities, and then you're able to express them. Now, the pure positive energy that is all that is, and the pure positive energy that is you at your essence, that pure positive energy vibrates at a very high frequency. This is very high level instruction I'm giving. The best word that describes that very high frequency is love. Appreciation is another, but love is better. And so in order to express these supernatural abilities, as I said, you have to come into alignment with the pure positive energy. The pure positive energy is vibrating at the level of love. And in order for you to soothe the negative momentum that's preventing you from expressing these abilities, you have to be in a state of love chronically, to the point that lesser vibrations are soothed out of your experience. So the two biggest safeguards that prevent people from expressing these capabilities are being put in place ongoingly by the very people who are not able to express the abilities. The first safeguard is believing they're not possible. And the second safeguard is not being in a chronic state of love. Can you see the elegant kind of Chinese thumb, what's that thing? The Chinese thumb puzzle kind of nature of all that is? It's beautifully orchestrated such that you are in the seat of power, but you don't know you're in the seat of power, and so you aren't able to express that power until you realize something like what I'm telling you here. So now, there are some people who want to believe that supernatural abilities are available to humans. They are authors, directors of movies, screenwriters, video game producers, these kinds of people, these creative people. They often express their latent belief in these supernatural abilities in the characters and in the plots that they create. So these people are close to believing that these abilities are possible. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to create the stories that they create. But they're not able to express it for themselves because of what I said over the last 18 minutes. Most people who believe that these are possible have countervailing thoughts within them that keep them from expressing it themselves. One of them is, they may be possible, but I can't do it. Or they may be possible, but it's hard. Or they're fantasies that I could write about, but not something that I can actually do. Or there are other beliefs that just have them unable to lean in the direction of it, like I have responsibilities. So the safeguards aren't some externally imposed boundaries that prevent us from expressing these supernatural abilities. The supernatural abilities are being safeguarded by each and every individual as they move through the calibration of their thoughts and beliefs, which are creating the reality experience that they're experiencing, that experience being a training ground that is enabling them eventually to express even more capability than the supernatural abilities human beings like to watch and read about in movies and books. So, how does a person comply with these safeguards so that they can eventually express the supernatural abilities? One other safeguard, by the way, is impatience. Thinking that you know better than the universe with regard to when something should happen. And the reason why I just offered that one is because of this number 2, how to comply with the safeguards. Complying with the safeguards, that's what this positively focused framework is all about. It's about complying with the safeguards, is about learning, realizing that you are the creator of your reality, and then aligning with the fundamental principles of that reality you're creating. And the biggest fundamental principle is being, I like to tell this to my early clients, my just beginning clients, being positively deranged, being so positive that people would call you crazy. Believing that everything is possible, that's being positively deranged. And when you do that, you begin to produce evidence, because your thoughts and beliefs create your reality. You begin to produce evidence that confirms what you're believing in, the positivity, that everything is possible. And as you do this, as you develop the momentum of pure positivity, you simultaneously soothe the momentum of beliefs that are running contrary to the pure positive energy momentum. And that dynamic, building the momentum of pure positive energy focus, while at the same time soothing the momentum of some momentum other than pure positive energy focus, that dynamic takes a while. It takes a while because very few humans are chronically positive. And in the space of them not being chronically positive, they're either waffling between some positive emotions and some negative emotions. Emotions are vibrational indicators. They're waffling between positive emotions and negative emotions, or they're predominantly negative in their focus. And when you're there, you've built momentum. And so you get a lot of momentum built up, and that momentum has to manifest in your physical reality. And then when you look at the manifestations and you complain about them, you amplify and add more momentum to that negative momentum, until you get to the point where you have so much negative momentum, it feels like you're disconnected from source, from your pure positive origins. Of course, that can never be, but you can pinch it off so much that it feels like you're totally disconnected. And that's why people end up motivated to take action that is inconsistent with their source. That's how people end up killing themselves. It's how people end up shooting up schools, is they develop a chronic state of negative momentum, a chronic state of negative thoughts and beliefs, typically about themselves and then about other people, or the other way around, until they've built up a lot of negative momentum. And then that negative momentum starts to manifest either in their own body as illness, or in people they rendezvous with who are matching that momentum. And then they get confirmation or validation of their negative thoughts and beliefs, which then amplifies or doubles down on that negative momentum. And before long, they're in a state of very low vibration that is described in emotions as powerlessness or depression. Not far from that vicinity of powerlessness and depression is rage and anger and vengeance. And so when you're disconnected from source, you're really far from being able to express supernatural abilities. And you often are inspired by something other than your source to take action that will have you check out of physical reality, like shooting up a school and then getting shot yourself as the police respond. So, in order to realize supernatural abilities, unless you've come into physical reality with some pretty strong positive momentum already, you have to build up positive momentum. You have to align with the source energy that you are, and the best indicator of that is feeling good. And then do the same thing I was talking about people who double down on negative momentum do. You have to double down on that positive momentum so that you amplify the positive momentum, while at the same time you're soothing the momentum you already have that's negative. And then before long, it takes a little while, you start seeing evidence. Of course, the first evidence you see is instant. The first evidence of you aligning with your source is you feeling better. That's a manifestation. Your feeling is a physical manifestation. It shows up in your body. And then over time, as you continue to amplify, to double down on that positive momentum, then you begin to see other evidence in your life experience confirming what you're doing. And then, gradually, you dismantle the safeguards. And before long, you're able to experience supernatural abilities. I had a really excellent experience in the last couple of days with this, where I had focused in my mind someone who I hold dear. And when I did that, I experienced extrasensory perception. I perceived what she wanted to talk with me about. I expressed what what I perceived in an email to her before we got together. And indeed, she confirmed that what I had perceived was accurate. So these supernatural abilities that people think are impossible are an inherent part of your existence. Eventually, you're going to experience them because they're just commonplace in all that is. It is the main way non-physical beings communicate and travel. And you can have those experiences here. But it takes a while because we have to soothe the negative momentum while at the same time lining up with the momentum that is pure positive energy. So this is instruction, and I've given the instruction I'm about to give before. I'm giving these instructions, the same instructions I give to my clients, but I'm giving them in a much slower cadence because I know that not everyone is watching every single one of these lives. So the first step, here's the instruction, the first step to complying with the safeguards is this. Every morning when you wake, before you do anything else, you're laying in bed, roll onto your back, and begin to express appreciation for the things in your immediate vicinity. This sounds simple, but it's very powerful. It will enable you in time to begin to build positive, pure positive energy momentum. Appreciation is a very high vibration. So you make 10 or 15 statements of appreciation of things in your environment, but you have to mean it. You can't be giving it lip service. You have to mean it. You have to be focused. And then when you receive the immediate manifestation, which is feeling better, you get out of bed and go on your day. It sounds like this. Oh, I love how warm my pillow is. I love how soft my pillow is. I love how warm it is under these blankets. I love the weight of my blankets. I love the body heat of my partner next to me. I love how quiet it is in here. I love the sound of the birds outside. I love the color of the walls in my bedroom. I love how we've designed this bedroom space. It's so comfortable and joyful. I love that I have time this morning to do this appreciation exercise. I love how good I'm feeling right now as I do this. That's what it sounds like. Do that every day and watch how much better your days go. Supernatural abilities are inherent in all of us. Whether you know it or not, you're already using them. You're already projecting yourself outside of your body. You do it every night when you go to sleep, and you're also doing it when you're awake. You're just not aware that you're doing it. You already teleport. You just don't perceive that you're doing so. You already have extrasensory perception. You can perceive beyond your senses, your physical senses. Every other supernatural ability science fiction writers or artists can conjure, you possess. The only one blocking you from expressing those abilities is you. This has been Instruction. I will see you in a couple of weeks in the next live. In the meantime, if you want to get more detailed into the positively focused practice, I've included links where you can test drive a session with me for free. Or if you're ready to become a client, there's a link in the description where you can become a client by clicking over to the website. And until the next video, which drops tomorrow, I wish you the most glorious Sunday ever.